I'm gonna get off now. You lot are the most disrespectful people I've ever met.
That is mad.
Guys, do you think we did anything wrong there? Like, were we
She was just delusional, mate.
rude? Anyways, today we have number one. What's your name?
You just want to rip me apart, don't you? And women are in a revolution right now, and women are tired of men saying, shave that, shave that.
Hair is not attractive though.
It's not.
For sure.
Okay, beards are attractive.
It's different for a man, though.
Okay. Yeah.
Would that not be worth you saving your dignities? You getting your out on is adding nothing productive to our society.
Except
if anything,
from the
it's
tax.
damaging our society.
Except from the tax bill, the £238,000 that I
Well,
paid on the
okay,
31st
what
of
we were
January
I was
this
talking
year.
about, were we rude? So, we ran the episode down.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video. Before we get anywhere today, there is something absolutely hilarious that I need to clarify. In the background of my video, there was a pink penis-shaped thing that once everyone pointed it out, I couldn't see anything else. It's there. It's right there. It's a pair of gloves. It's... wait there. This thing... pair of gloves. Nothing weird. Pair of gloves. Okay, now the important stuff is out of the way, we can get into the content of today's video. I just found it hilarious. Just once they point it out in the comments, I couldn't unsee it. And it's just there, like this penis haunting me in the background of the entire video. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. Anyway, there you go. Pair of gloves. Sadly, though, that's not the only time we are going to be hearing about penises today. So... enjoy. If you can't tell by now by watching my other content, my older videos, that sort of stuff, I have a real dislike of misogynistic men who sit around making podcasts where their only aim is to shame women in one way or another, whilst at the same time making money off exploiting their bodies, their sexuality. It's just really disgusting. Not only are these men often offensive and rude and honestly a bit scary, but worst of all, they're really damn boring. They have less charisma than a stick of celery, and I don't even know why anyone watches them. Today we are looking at an episode from one of those podcasts, The Reality Check, or a Realty Check, as they accidentally call themselves in the description of every video on their channel, because apparently they don't know how to spot basic typos in probably the most important thing about them. They describe themselves as a podcast where we discuss dating, problems with dating, the problems with men in society, and we'll keep you entertained as we go through it all and bring on guests to chat about these somewhat controversial topics. Where is the entertainment? I've yet to see it. Look, if you think I'm being harsh today, I am, and they deserve it. Like, I don't normally go this hard on people, but once you see them and hear and learn about them, you'll understand why. The hosts are Sean Maroof and CJ McKenna and some other guy who apparently isn't important enough to be named in the video description, so we'll just call him the ginger one. Their past content has featured the likes of Walking Biohazard and Predator Bonnie Blue, and that other one that's basically a clone of her, or she's a clone of them, or who cares, they all do the same content anyway. Lily Phillips. Basically, it all revolves around exploiting women for views. This seems like a good time to bring up what their thumbnails on their videos look like. Now, I understand as a YouTuber, you have to be a little bit clickbaity, you want to be engaging. That's kind of it. It's difficult with YouTube because you want your titles and thumbnails to elicit an emotional response so that people will watch, and that's why sometimes you can exaggerate a little or, be a little bit like, ooh, shocking. But ultimately, like, as long as you're delivering on the content, that's what's important, I think, anyway. It's a fine balance between, like, being emotive and being, well, just lying to your audience, These men, they don't like their audience, but their way of eliciting emotion in their audience is just to exploit women's bodies. Women who aren't them. Look at their thumbnails. These men would be literally nothing without the women whose bodies they're exploiting for money. People don't click on their videos or watch this podcast because they see their thumbnails and think, ooh, what smart men, I bet they're funny and interesting. No, of course not. It's because they're like, oh, look, a hot woman. Remember that as we go forward. These men would have nothing without the women they exploit. Recently, they had Rebecca Goodwin on as a guest, and while I didn't know who she was before, I can now tell you she is a business owner, a mother, an OnlyFans model who, unlike Bonnie Blue, actually seems to care about her safety. She doesn't seem to exploit her partners. She actually gets consent. She works with adults who can consent. Like, you know, she seems like she's pretty together. She seems intelligent. She is very well spoken. And these three men decided it would be a good idea to invite her onto their podcast. I'm not sure why she agreed, but here we are. It happened. I understand why they asked her, though, of course. They're rude and entitled and boring and no one knows who they are, whereas she is intelligent, charismatic, and has hundreds of thousands of fans. It makes sense why they needed her. Unfortunately, instead of putting any effort into trying to make actual entertaining content or having an interesting conversation with her, instead they just spent 20 minutes belittling her, being rude, trying to embarrass her, saying the most misogynistic crap until she got up and walked away. And honestly, good on her for that. Like, I felt like having a little cheer when she got up. I was just like, good on you, love. They then posted this clip on their YouTube channel and expected to be met with like applause, only for near enough everyone in the comments to call them out. And they got absolutely ratioed in the likes to dislikes, which, you know, we love to see. And we're going to be looking at this episode date and just having a little chat about it. So let's go. First up, even though I don't understand why she went on this podcast, I do have to give Rebecca credit for agreeing to do it in the first place, because based on their entire demeanour, the way we see them speak to her and other women, the stuff that we now know about at least one of their pasts, I know I would not feel safe being in a room with these men. I just would not I wouldn't even feel safe like talking to them, like on a phone call or something. They're very aggressive. They give off dangerous energy, if you will. I wouldn't do it, so she's a lot braver than me. Anyway, they opened this podcast by begging for money like the big strong men that they are. Apparently their past content has been so offensive and misogynistic that YouTube have demonetized them. They admit that they don't earn anything from this podcast anymore, and again, remember that. It's going to be important.
Welcome back to the reality check. Today, guys, we need some help from all of you. We have been demonetized on YouTube, so we literally don't earn anything from these videos anymore. We need your support to keep this channel going.
These men are not earning money from this podcast. They are not paying taxes based on anything they earn from this podcast. They are not providing educational or entertaining content that people are enjoying. You could say they're not contributing to the world. Remember that. So we're like a minute in now, and immediately after asking for money, this guy Sean immediately disrespects Rebecca by calling her a slur and admitting that he hasn't even bothered to learn her name or anything really about her before this interview started. All he actually seems to know about her are like two embarrassing, he tries to make them embarrassing, stories or anecdotes about her that he just keeps bringing up in an attempt to, I guess, like, embarrass her, demean her. I don't know, we'll see. I don't actually think he knows anything about her or who she is. He definitely doesn't respect her. There's nothing.
Anyways, today we have ho number one.
Hey.
What's your name?
Wow, it's Rebecca Goodwin. You just want to rip me apart, don't you? And I don't mean in the way that I'm used
We'll
to.
get to that, to be fair. We will get to that.
Come on, do your worst.
She's definitely got a hell of a lot more patience than me for trying to like laugh this off at this point, because if this was me and someone introduced me in that way, I would have been out of there. You know, say what you want about her, but she's clearly brave, she's patient, and she's much more forgiving than most people would be. The conversation immediately gets weird because before anything else, before even saying her name or acknowledging that she's a human, he goes straight into asking her about her vulva, and I think that tells you everything you need to know about him. She decided to have some fun with them here and make, it was a gross joke, it was a crass joke, but clearly she was kind of poking fun of their lack of knowledge, and they just fell for it. You know, they believed this stuff was true. I have no words. They're idiots. This podcast does start off very weird. This is pretty gross. I'm sorry you have to watch this, but there is a point to it all because it's all, I just want to show you like how they treated her right off the bat, and it will make sense as we go on. Like, how she got from the point of, like, being a guest to frustrated and walking off. Like, I want you to see her emotional journey because it's frustrating.
So, tell me, why did you decide to change your minge from brown to pink using a Snapchat filter?
No, when a white girl has brown pussy, that means that she always wipes from back to front. And
I
then
don't think
Dad
it does.
never said.
I don't think it does.
Wait, so it's just poo then?
wait, it's
It's
not a
just
poo stained
shit
vagina.
stain.
Why did
Yeah.
you clean up the poo rather than use a
I
filter
thought-
and just keep the poo on there?
Because it's just a stain, isn't it?
Wait, you was actually wiping back to front?
No, that was obviously I'm taking a piss. Do you know anything about women? Right, okay, so sometimes the vagina is just a bit off-coloured and it's not bubblegum pink, and that's okay. And so back then I didn't know what I was doing, so I just used a Snapchat filter that made it a little bit more rosy and nice and cute.
So clearly she's right. You know, these men know nothing about the basics of women's anatomy. Going straight into this conversation without any preamble feels incredibly disrespectful. And also, what's even the point? Like, I think they were trying to embarrass her here by, like, making fun of her vulva, but this isn't entertaining, it's just a bit dumb. But I mean, hey, if you do want to talk about this stuff, there's a way to do it in a way that is entertaining and educational. It might have been a nice opportunity to talk about how all vulvas are different and there are lots of different shapes and sizes and colours, all of which are normal and beautiful, and no one should ever feel ashamed of what their genitals look like. You absolutely could make this educational and uplifting while still being entertaining, but they choose not to. Instead, their aim is to just try and embarrass a woman and demean her for how her body looks. Instead, these men are just dumb. They fall for her stupid joke and be like, oh, is that really true? No. And then they just start complaining about how she's swearing too much. All blame has to go on her, of course. She's apparently swearing too much because she said the word anal at one point. And then they're like, oh, let's come up with other words for bum and bumhole. And then they entirely fail at that and they just come across really dumb. And they don't realise that rectum isn't a word for like bumhole, but it's actually like the internal last part of the large intestine. And I know. Can't believe I'm even having to say this nonsense. Can't say what is my life. Okay. My point here is to ask the question, what are these men even contributing? They're not intelligent or interesting or insightful. Again, remember that. I'm not just saying it to be mean. I'm saying it because there is a point. And so far, they have been nothing but disrespectful to this woman. There wasn't even like a thanks for being here, can you tell our audience a little about yourself at the beginning? It was just, you're a hoe, what's your name? Like, grow up. Sean then thinks it's appropriate to move the conversation on to talk about her pubic hair, and CJ chimes in to shame all women and say that like he thinks all women should be shaven and blah 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 because this is his preference and therefore all women should bow down to it and listen to his superior knowledge of our own genitals. It's all a bit of a red flag, to be honest. Oh, not good. Again, there could have been an interesting conversation here, but they chose not to go that way. Body hair, absolutely anywhere on the body, is completely a personal choice, and no matter what you choose to do with it, it is absolutely fine. I think that goes without saying. There's no wrong or right. What I do find gross, though, is when other people start telling others, especially when it's men telling women what to do with their own bodies and body hair. And what's wild about these guys is that Rebecca has made a personal choice for what she wants to do with her body hair, and they're like, oh, so you must be doing it for men. And they just can't fathom that, one, it's completely natural and normal for women to have hair all over their body. We're humans, it's what happens. This is what mammals are like. I can't believe I'm even having to say that. And two, they can't seem to understand that women make choices for themselves and their own comfort, and not because like, ooh, men like looking at this. It's really, really silly. And also, when you get men like this who are constantly demanding that every woman is completely clean shaven all over all the time, like Rebecca points out more eloquently than I could, it is concerning because you are demanding that women make themselves look like prepubescent girls. If a woman chooses to be clean shaven for whatever reason she wants, that's her own choice. But a man demanding it is a bit creepy, you know? Rebecca, like I say, articulates this very well, and I have to commend her for it. She kept her cool, she made her points well. Watch this.
So you can't.
So is it blonde?
Yeah.
Why don't you dye it? Do you have a strip or how
No,
is
I'm
it?
just bald.
Yeah,
'Cause
good.
men
That's
like-
the best way.
Yeah,
What's
I'm
going on
gonna say-
recently with like porn stars having
Do you want-
hairy minges?
Do you want to know? They're grown women. That's what's going on with that.
Yeah,
you
well-
want a prepubescent child? Then absolutely.
Well, obviously
fine.
not, but
I'm
why
just
don't they
saying.
wax anymore? No, because they used to be bald.
Because women are in a revolution right now, and women are tired of men saying, shave that pussy, shave that pussy. Women
Okay,
want to be able
so-
to have hair, and then men will say, isn't that unhygienic? And I'll say, show me your fucking armpits, and you'll have hair there, right?
So why don't you have hairy armpits then?
Because I don't personally want them. That's my preference. But if a woman did, it wouldn't mean that it's more unhygienic than a man to
I never
have
said it's
them.
unhygienic, it's just unattractive.
Yeah, no.
And is anyone else as mad as me about Sean doing these fake snores while she's actually saying something intelligent? It is damn frustrating. Speaking of snores, we have Kara snoring on the floor next to me. Sorry if you can hear her. People who are new to my channel don't always realise what the noises are. It's my dog snoring. We live in a small flat. When she sleeps, she snores a lot, especially because she's a little old lady now, and it echoes around the whole flat. So, sorry about that. She's just a loud little bear, or a loud little pig, rather. She's a good girl, though. Right, where were we? Anyway, yeah, Sean, fake snoring. It's disrespectful, it's cruel, it's just stupid, and it's all because he's not smart enough to keep up with her in conversation, so he's trying to belittle her. He didn't have to do this. It's just pathetic.
But why is it unattractive?
Okay, so you're saying this, but you've got a bald minge, right?
Yeah.
So you obviously think it's
but
unattractive.
that's because it itches me.
Okay,
Alright?
so
That's,
you think
that's the reason.
So you think
it's
a
nothing
hairy
to do
minge?
whether. No, I don't think a hairy minge is unattractive. I think
don't?
it's very attractive. Yeah.
You think it's
I
very
love
attractive?
a woman.
What's
you
attractive
alright?
about it?
I'm all right. Yeah.
No.
The only people on this planet that naturally have bald pussies and bald armpits are kids.
Can we not get into that?
No, because they don't
No,
like
no.
it when you throw the facts
No,
out
but
there.
that's ridiculous.
It's not.
Of course
It's
it's
the
ridiculous.
truth. Right. It's okay for you to
Hair
have
is
a
not
preference.
attractive, though.
It's not.
For sure.
Can you believe the absolute nerve of these men to sit here and try and tell women what's attractive and what isn't? If they have a preference, that's fine. And they say like, hey, I prefer it when a partner's like this, but you know, I'm accepting of women and their bodies in whatever way. That's fine, you know? You don't need to shout about it, but it's fine to have that preference. However, to be like, all men want this, I want this, and therefore all men want this, and all women should do this. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? You know? Different people have different preferences. Not everyone feels the same way you do. It's fine. And while I normally wouldn't attack someone for their personal appearance, these men started it, and so I'm just gonna say, how the hell can they sit there and be all like, ooh, hair isn't attractive, women need to do this and this and this, when they've got scraggly beards and patchy stubble and silly bowl cuts on their head? It's a massive double standard. You can't demand women do X, Y, and Z with their bodies to appeal to you when you look like you haven't showered in a week. They aren't even aware that there's a double standard in the stuff they're saying, or maybe they are and they just don't care. But either way, it's incredibly frustrating.
Say that again with that mouth with hair all around it, please.
Okay, beards are attractive.
It's different for a man,
Right.
though.
Okay, it's not different for a man.
Of course it is.
Yeah, because of society's standards, because of what you
So
demand.
you're actually looking at me and telling me you only shave because it's itchy.
Yeah,
so you
it
shave your
itches me,
armpits and that.
Yeah,
and
I
your
shave
legs.
everything.
And
but
your
the problem
legs.
is,
I'm sorry, but it's not different for a man. It's not. I don't know about anyone else, but the only thing I really like demand of a partner is that they're clean and hygienic and look after themselves. Anything else is down to personal preference. And like, either you're attracted to someone or you're not, it's fine. But I'm not going to go telling anyone else what to do with their bodies or appearance or whatever. And I can't believe how aggressive they're being about this. They're like genuinely angry and shouting, and it's actually a bit scary. I also don't understand why they don't get that women don't shave to appeal to men. A lot of women do it for sensory reasons. Like, the way Rebecca's talking here, I'm exactly the same. For me, body hair is a sensory nightmare. I get so damn itchy. Like, if I let my leg hair grow out at all, the itching is so bad. And I also have like a lot of allergies to detergents and stuff like that, so I have to be careful with what I use. And it gets worse when like my leg hair's long and stuff like that. So if I let it grow out at all, then like it itches so badly that it makes my skin bleed. Like I will scratch in my sleep and make my legs, my arms, like my skin just bleeds. It's not pleasant. And so the only way to deal with that is to keep it shaven. Yeah, I've tried waxing and it's never, I don't know, I don't like it. But shaving's fine. And even like when it's coming, like growing back through, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't itch. It's the length of the hair that just drives me crazy. If I had a choice, no, of course I wouldn't shave or anything like that, because, oh God, it's so much effort and it's boring and I don't like it. But to stop me like scratching my skin to pieces, you do it. It's not for a man. That's for my own comfort. And so I'm not constantly bleeding from my skin all the time. And I assume Rebecca and women like her also have similar issues. Maybe not as dramatic as this, but like it's there, you know? All I see here when I hear these guys talking is that these men are really so intimidated by a confident woman who can advocate for herself and other women that they don't know how to respond to it without just shouting nonsense at the top of their voices. And it's embarrassing for them.
It's right. If you have a partner, you have a preference. It is fine. It is fine for a man to have a preference. You want a bald pussy? I get that. No problem. But when the issue starts is when men start saying all women should be shaved. That's like saying hair doesn't belong on women, right? And I am telling you, right? Yeah, your preference for a woman, not for me, not for a porn star, not for someone you are never going to fuck in your life. That is what we call none of your fucking business.
Okay.
I do love her. I think she's great. She's absolutely killing it here. And you can see in their faces they don't have a clue how to react. It's so embarrassing for them. Like, why did they even post this? Are they that dumb that they didn't realise how dumb this would make them look? I think the answer is yes.
So when women say all men should be 6 foot plus.
I don't say that.
No, but...
No, not all men should be. They're saying the person that we date.
But that's the societal norm, right?
No, the person that
all
you
men
date.
need to be 6 foot plus or they're short, yeah?
Well, no,
do we not do
that
that to men? And you know what's mad? Men can't even change that.
I don't understand why this is always like men's go-to like this. I don't actually know any women who care about this. I've dated men who are like 5'6", 5'7", like the same height as me or barely taller. I think I've actually been on a date with someone who's 5'5" and was shorter than me. It's fine. I've also been on dates with a couple of guys who are like 6'5" and they're like way tall. I really don't care either way. Actually, no, that's a lie. I feel like I do have a preference for people who are a bit closer in my height because having to be on tiptoes to kiss someone gets a little bit like, oh, this again. It's like exercise. I don't do that. But my point is, I genuinely don't think women make a big deal about this like men like this say they do. I don't believe it at all. My dad's 5'3"-ish, something like that. He's tiny. He's the shortest one in our family. He's been married for 40 years. Clearly my mum, his wife, doesn't give a damn about his height. He really thinks this is some sort of like gotcha moment, but she's like, well, no, I don't think that way. And he's like, well, of course you do, of course you do. And she's like, no, I actually don't. And he's just building up this straw man and refusing to hear that he's wrong. It's ridiculous. And also, in this clip, look at these. Does anyone else keep noticing how much he insists on touching her and just getting his hands in her personal space? Like, no, keep your hands to yourself. Stay away from her. Get a job.
Some men are below 6 foot. Most men are below 6 foot. Imagine how they feel.
Well, I imagine they're a lot more confident in themselves and happy in their lives than this buffoon of a man. Just a guess.
There's a lot of women out there that
you should start a trend.
A short
men are kings.
My man's a short man.
You got a man?
He's a short. I've got a man. I've got a few men.
Oh, you got a few men, do you?
Of course I have. Yeah.
And they're all below 6 foot.
Yeah, they are. He's exactly the same height as me. Exactly the same.
How tall's that?
5'8".
Do you know what? Going back to the hairy binges.
See, in here, she straight up proves them wrong, and they have absolutely no idea how to respond. And so after this awkward silence, they're just like, well, hang on, let's go back to the bit where we shame women. I also just have to say, I do not like this word that they're using for vulva over and over, and I refuse to say it because it feels icky. The way that some people feel about words like moist, I feel about that word. I also feel like they're using it in a derogatory way, which just rubs me the wrong way and also makes me not want to use it. Like, there's nothing wrong with a nice vulva, okay? Vulva's fine. We like that. I mean, honestly, you call your genitals whatever you want. It's just in this case, it feels like they're using it in a derogatory way, and I don't like the way it sounds anyway, so I'm not gonna repeat it. That's just a personal preference on my part when it comes to language. That's fine. Just want to point it out. Then there's just several minutes of them just shouting over her about the same things over and over and over. It's nonsense. It's boring. It's loud for no reason. I have no idea how I should put up with it for so long. I really, really don't. This woman is a saint. We are going to skip forward a little bit in the video here just to skip over some of the shouting because it's pointless and repetitive. But I do think now is a good time to bring in some extra information, which is a little bit more serious than just, ooh, listen to this silly podcast. Because there are some really serious allegations out there about these men, in particular Sean. There were a number of sources out there, honestly not the most credible sources, I will say that. They were a little bit biased, but they claimed that Sean had a history of certain arrests. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring this up because, again, I was like, I don't know if they're credible. It feels a little biased. I'll just say it. Some of the racists, oh my god, some of the websites they were on were incredibly racist and just straight up anti-Islam, which is a huge problem, and normally you wouldn't trust those sources, right? However, Sean has confirmed himself that they're true. So this is information that Sean himself has given to us, and we know it's true. So these aren't just like allegations, this is fact that he's confirmed. A few years back, Sean was charged with raping a 16-year-old girl when he was 17. He ended up in court about it when he was 19. There wasn't enough evidence to convict him, and he was found not guilty. But as we all know, not guilty doesn't mean innocent. That doesn't mean a crime didn't take place. It doesn't mean this young girl made it up or was lying. It simply means there wasn't enough evidence to convict. Not guilty is not the same as innocent. Here he is talking about it on a couple of occasions.
Where these people are coming from. No one's saying yous are nonsense, except a few people that have said that Sean got convicted for some shady shit with a 16-year-old girl. That's a different conversation.
No. If we're going to make allegations, we should at least...
Allegedly.
No. Because you said the word convicted. I was charged and found not guilty. You can't say convicted.
Hi guys, I just want to come on here and talk about a lot of the misinformation that is being spread about a case that I went through. So in 2013, when I was 17 years old, I was falsely accused of... 2 years later, I was asked to come to court to enter my plea, not guilty. This is why the article that a lot of people have read have twisted it and made it out as if I was 19 and she was 16, when I was 17 and she was 16, as it took 2 years for the courts to ask me to come and enter a plea. After a trial at the Croydon Crown Court on the 29th of August in 2016, I was acquitted of all charges and found completely not guilty. Now do with this as you wish. I'm sure people have already made their minds up about me, but that is the truth and the fact, and I just needed to share my side of the story.
Now, I know a lot of men in my comments like to bring up this idea of like, if there hasn't been a conviction, then the crime didn't happen and it must be a false accusation and me. But by that logic, most crimes in the world haven't happened, I guess. You know what? I never got arrested or convicted for drinking underage when I was a teenager. So are you going to say that that didn't happen? That I actually didn't drink underage and I'm just lying about it? What about the fact that the bartenders who sold me alcoholic drinks in, and I can name the locations, Licorum, Voodoo, Lord Nelson, Spread Eagle, yes, that's the real name of a pub in Penistone where I grew up, The Bridge, they all sold me alcoholic drinks when I was 15, 16, 17, but those bartenders never got convicted, those bars never got well, actually, Licorum did get shut down one night, but there were no convictions ever made. No one ever went to prison for serving me drinks underage, therefore that must mean I'm just making it all up, right? Because if there was no conviction, there was no crime. It's not how it works. Not guilty or lack of conviction doesn't mean the crime didn't happen. It means there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. I don't think just because someone is found not guilty, that means someone made something up. Like, okay, here's another one, right? When I was about 14 or so, my dad's shed got broken into and a bunch of his power tools were just robbed and stolen overnight. No one was ever caught for that. No convictions were ever made. Does that mean that my dad made up his shed being broken into? Does that mean that he just lied about it and faked the whole thing? No, of course not. I don't get why we can understand this stuff for other crimes, but we can't when it comes to sexual assault. It all comes back to this idea that men in particular never want to believe women, and no one ever wants to take responsibility for violence and sexual violence against women. They always want to downplay it, and it's a massive problem. So all I will say about this is, Sean absolutely admits that he was accused of this, that he was arrested for this, that he was in court for this. He says he pleaded not guilty, but some of the dodgy websites say that he didn't put in a plea, so I'm not sure what to think there, but we'll say that he pleaded not guilty, because that's what he's saying. And we know that he was found not guilty because there wasn't enough evidence. However, while I can't prove anything, while I'm not going to make claims and say he did X, Y, and Z, I am going to say that I still believe his victims. And I am more than within my rights to do that. Absolutely do. One of the big things that makes me believe his victim is that these are not the only allegations against him. There is a pattern of behaviour here where multiple women and girls who have never spoken to each other, have never interacted with each other, who didn't know what the others have said about him, have all come forward with allegations about him that corroborate each other's stories. Like, this is a pattern of behaviour. And again, they're allegations, but the evidence, to me, points towards me believing them. So, Alizi sent me this screenshot of a message which got sent to Rebecca after she appeared on this podcast that says, "Hi Rebecca, I'm not sure if you'll get this or not, but I'm sending love to you anyway. I've just seen your TikTok about Sean Maroof's podcast in his house, and I want to give you a big hug over the internet and let you know you're not alone in your experience with him. Sean is my ex and is a narcissistic, abusive piece of poop. He steals, abuses, rapes, and pillages anything and everything, female or feminine, alongside tearing women down for doing the exact job he does. Again, I want you to know you're not alone in your experience. Sending so much love." Also, just big shout out to Alizi here, because she has helped me so much with, like, tell me about this podcast in the first place and helping me find, like, research stuff for it. So she's amazing. Love to bits. Go send her some love. There's also another TikTok clip I want to talk about where basically someone else has allegations against Sean. Or, well, yes, allegations against him. Different to the others. And I was just going to play you this clip, but it turns out it's from a very small account, and the woman who is making these claims says she has PTSD from some stuff that happened before, so I don't necessarily want to send too much traffic her way just in case the wrong people find it, and, you know, but I will summarize what she said. She said she was at uni living in a house full of 5 90-year-old women when, completely unprovoked, Sean, who was in the area visiting friends, tried to break into their house, punched a hole through the front door, and the police were involved. Sean and his friends begged the young women living in that house not to press charges, and they basically said that if they paid for the damages that he did to the door and the property, then would they not press charges, and the women agreed. I guess they felt pressured into it. It seemed like the easiest option. There you go. Turns out they were really keen for them not to press charges because he had this other ongoing court case with the 16-year-old girl. So, yeah. Again, I thoroughly believe this woman, and I'm going to say it again, just because they didn't press charges, just because there was no conviction, that doesn't mean a crime didn't take place. So, I just wanted to bring that up here to make it clear, this is the kind of man we're talking about. These are the things he has been accused of. This is why I thoroughly believe him to be dangerous. I'm not just pulling that out of my bum and saying it for no reason. I believe these multiple women about him. So back to the podcast episode, and again, we're going to skip over some of the shouting. Rebecca goes on to talk about what it's like finding a balance between being an adult content creator and having a long-term relationship. Again, I think that this could be a really interesting, nuanced conversation, because every adult content creator is going to have a different experience, and I think it's really important to see people's perspectives about stuff like this, and I think it's an interesting discussion to be had. But Sean spends his entire time, entirely disrespectfully, looking at his phone.
So anyway, how does your boyfriend feel about you doing corn?
Well, I met my boyfriend a year ago, and I have been doing corn for 5 years now. So obviously it was common knowledge that that was the industry that I'm in. So we don't really talk about it. I'm not like, hey babe, I've had the best day at work. It's been fucking fantastic. We sort of just don't really speak about me getting multiple men.
So he doesn't like it?
Yes. No, I'd say he doesn't, no.
Why would he do this? These men clearly do not care about anything women actually have to say. They don't actually want to listen to these women. They don't want to have a back and forth discussion with them. So why do they keep inviting them onto their podcast? Well, obviously to exploit them and their bodies and the thumbnails to get views, and also because they apparently, allegedly, in my opinion, get off on trying to humiliate women. Right. I'm going to watch this next clip now because I have crazy respect for this from Rebecca. She's making a crap ton of money making adult content, right? And then she's using that money to give back to people in need. She's buying properties so that she can rent them out affordably to families with low income. She's basically doing what the government should be doing but aren't. And I think this is really, really commendable.
So would you ever stop like what you're doing?
Would I fuck? The day that a man comes up to me and is worth more than 100 grand a month is the day that I'll stop doing it. And I can tell you now, just over, yeah.
Over 100 grand a month?
Yeah.
Does your boyfriend watch your new content?
He doesn't watch anything that I do. He's blocked me on all social media.
What are you doing with that money?
It goes into property, so I'm doing the affordable housing scheme. which is where I buy property outright, usually like 2-bedroom terrace, and we rent them out, we being me and my business partner, we rent them out to people that are low income families for prices like £450 a month for a 2-bed terrace house. So yeah, it's like, obviously I bought the houses anyway, so it's not completely selfless because all these properties will belong to my kids.
But the government subsidise you, right?
No, not yet. We want to turn it into a charity so that it's tax-free, but we're not at that point.
Clip. I have so much respect for her for this. This is amazing of her. It's so easy for people who have a lot of money to accumulate that and then use that, in a lot of cases, maybe to buy up a bunch of properties and then rent them out at extortionate prices. And then they drive up prices in the housing market, and it means that regular people can't afford to rent or buy themselves, and it's a huge, huge problem. She is buying up properties, which could be questionable. However, she's doing it so that she can rent them out affordably to families who need them. And that is really, really important. That is such a good thing to do. She's not doing it to make a profit and make a crap ton of money. She's doing it so people can afford to have homes for themselves and their families. Really, really good. And again, let's just summarize what she's doing here because I want you to remember this. She is running a business. She wants to start a charity. She's providing affordable housing for families. She goes on to say that she's building up all this stuff so she can pass it down to her 2 daughters. You could, and we should, she is contributing to society considerably more than most people. Definitely more than these 3 petulant little boys with their criminal records and demonetized podcast anyway. Remember that. She then tries to start a thoughtful discussion about how working for herself has allowed her freedom. She's been able to choose her own hours, which really helps when it comes to taking care of her kids at the same time. She has full control over her content. She can work in a safe environment that she has fostered for herself. No one is exploiting her or taking a percentage of her money or income or anything like that because she's in charge. She compares it to when she used to work for minimum wage in Debenhams and how she could only work part-time then because she also had to do childcare. She couldn't afford to have someone else, to pay someone else for childcare and work. And it was a whole thing. So she was balancing working minimum wage. She had no money. She had to rely a lot on government benefits. Now she doesn't have to do that. She can both work from home and afford people to look after the kids if she needs it or not. But she can also just spend more time with the kids. She can choose her own hours and she's earning more money from it. It's, again, I think, a really thoughtful discussion that raises really a lot of interesting points. And she does talk about, the benefits and the pitfalls and all that sort of thing, or at least she's trying to. But all of the men, once again, are entirely dismissive, talk over her, and don't seem to believe anything she's saying about her actual lived experience. It's so frustrating to listen to. This is not a conversation. They're not listening to her and engaging with her. It's her trying to talk and them just shouting over her and just jumping in because they want to catch her out or prove her wrong or humiliate her or whatever. It's very uncomfortable to watch. There is literally no entertainment value in any of this. So this next part is quite important too. I want you to listen to this. Sean asks a question where he implies if you make adult content then you must have no dignity, which is just wild and completely untrue. All you have to do is listen to how Rebecca speaks here. She's confident, she's intelligent, she's hardworking. Say what you want about making adult content, but she clearly has a lot of dignity. She has a lot of self-respect. She's clearly intelligent and driven. You can't deny that stuff. She does, however, go on to say that she was a victim of SA when she was just 4 years old, and now she does sex work so she feels that she can reclaim a lot of what was taken from her and have a lot of control over her sexuality and her life, and I do respect that. I think she's really, really strong here. Sean, however, is so damn disrespectful.
Yeah, not you that you had 2 kids and so on. The normal person who could earn even the minimum wage, which would be almost £2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Would that not be worth you saving your dignity? My
dignity was long gone way before I had this job. My dignity was robbed of me when I was 4 years old. I'm reclaiming everything that was taken from me, okay? Everything.
How are you reclaiming it? By doing OnlyFans? Because
men used my body and now I'm using my body to reclaim what was taken from me. My dignity was stolen as a child. I was raped as a child. I was groomed as a child. There's no dignity there. Obviously, it's common knowledge that the more people, that if people were, groomed or raped as a child, then they are more hypersexual as an adult. I'm going to use that to monetize from every single person that has ever taken from me. And I think I've done that pretty well. You say it's no dignity, but there's no dignity in going out to work for somebody that's really, really rich. I'm talking Tesco's, right? You're going to go, what is the dignity in setting your alarm for 6 o'clock in the morning to get up to go and make their pockets even bigger and give them more money while you're sat there all day?
You're comparing doing OnlyFans to a
Absolutely.
Even that, I'm not going to lie, even that has more
Absolutely.
dignity than what you do.
Please explain to me how getting up in the morning to
You're
line
being
some rich
you're doing
man's
something
pocket,
positive for society, I guess.
positive. £238,000 was my tax bill this year. Okay, I'm doing something positive for society by paying the lot of your wages.
Okay.
There are complex and nuanced discussions to be had around sex work. Some people are forced into it. Some people don't have any other choice. It can be incredibly exploitative in that way. Like when you do have people who, you know, minimum wage isn't paying their bills, they're struggling to get by. Like some people feel like they're forced into it. And that's something that we shouldn't shame people for, I don't believe. The industry can be exploitative. There can be abuse in the industry. There can be trafficking to get people into the industry. Those are absolutely things to be critical of. However, in cases like Rebecca's here, she's worked hard to make sure she is always in control. She works in safe environments. She's not faced any of those issues. So I don't understand why they're being so critical of her. Every job in one way or another is selling your body or mind or time. If this is how she chooses to do it and she's not being hurt by it, then why shouldn't she do it? Why do people like Sean claim there's less dignity in this than, as she says, allowing herself to be exploited for minimum wage working in a shop just to make some big billionaires even richer? If she's selling her body, whether that's in Tesco's or online, why shouldn't she be the one profiting from it and not rich white men, you know? Frustratingly though, I think she makes great points, but frustratingly the other guys decide to chime in here too. I think they're so wrong. But I do have to admit, at one point I feel like maybe I was at risk of siding with them. I absolutely was. I've had my own prejudices in the past that I've absolutely had to overcome. You know, I've seen the exploitation in that industry. I've seen the way that it preys on like vulnerable women without any other options. And I've also kind of blamed sex workers as well. And this is entirely my own fault. I'll say this now. Like, I've had those prejudices too, because, well, I'll tell you my stories. I was repeatedly cheated on by 2 exes with sex workers. And I felt so completely betrayed, and I felt dirty, and I felt like, oh God, they're opening me up to like all these STIs and risks and all this sort of thing. And they were. But in my completely like angry and upset and insecure state, I pointed the blame at the sex workers and not the cheating, abusive partners. Which was my mistake, absolutely was my mistake. I was directing my anger in completely the wrong places. The issue wasn't with anything the sex workers had done. They weren't in the wrong here. They were, if anything, being exploited by these men too. They were victims in this as well. Or at best, they were just doing their jobs. You know, you can't blame them for that, can you? The issue was entirely with the cheating men who broke my trust and overstepped my boundaries. And it took me a long time to kind of work through that anger and be like, oh crap, hang on, I was in the wrong there. Shouldn't have been having those thoughts. I shouldn't have been directing my anger in those places. So I think my point here I think my point here is if I can look back at my own prejudices and misconceptions all those years ago and be like, damn, I was in the wrong. You know why I did that? I was insecure. I had issues. Why can't the guys do this? Because when they start being like, oh, there's no dignity in this, there's no, like, all I see is like, oh, they're insecure, they're jealous, they have their own issues. That's because I know that when I was never like this bad, but when I have my own like prejudices, it was because of my own issues and insecurities. And so that's why like I can see it in them. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense. Anyway. Point is, it seems to me that all of this is fueled by their jealousy over the fact that she is more successful than they will ever be, and she's not sorry about it. She's owning it. And I actually have a hell of a lot of respect for her and what she's built and how strong she seems to be and everything she's overcome. Really, really do.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is, if we went back to caveman times,
which we're not in, yeah,
we're actually going to have some constructive.
If we went back to
production coming from
okay,
people
so why
that are
don't
doing
you go
those
out
jobs.
there and kill a cow instead of shopping at Tesco's? Let's go
But there
back
are
to
people
caveman
doing that.
times.
There are people doing that, though.
But
And
we're not in
you
caveman
wouldn't be able to
times.
eat your burgers if there weren't people doing that. Whereas you getting your minge out on OnlyFans is
I'll tell you something else.
adding nothing productive to our society. If
Except
anything,
from the
it's damaging. It's damaging our society.
Except from the tax bill, the £238,000 that I paid on the 31st of January this year.
And this is what it's all been building up to. And this is why I've been like, remember this, remember this, remember this. Because did you hear that? This alleged criminal and rapist with a demonetized podcast and several failed businesses under his belt has just told this millionaire entrepreneur who provides affordable housing for low-income families, pays several hundred thousands of pounds in tax a year, and raises 2 kids that she doesn't contribute to society. The nerve of this man, we can't even call him a man, the nerve of this silly little boy, it makes me so mad. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely laughable. And caveman times. Come on. Let's count the things she does. I'm going to keep saying it. She provides entertainment for hundreds of thousands of fans who are more than willing to pay her for it. She pays hundreds of thousands in tax a year that goes straight back into helping others. She provides affordable housing out of her own pocket for low-income families. She's setting up a charity. She's raising 2 kids. I assume she also provides a number of jobs for people who she employs, right? That's doing a hell of a lot more for society than all of these 3 men put together. What do any of these men actually do? Her being paid to show off her body isn't hurting anyone. However, allegedly breaking into women's homes, allegedly sexually assaulting women, literally spending your days begging for money so that you can make a boring, misogynistic podcast that exploits women and their bodies and their experiences that barely anyone watches, that is actively causing harm. The only people causing harm here are the men, not her. So how dare he say this? He is absolutely pathetic, isn't he, Kubari? You got something to say, Grandballs? When is the last time Sean or CJ or the ginger one did anything for anyone? When's the last time they went out and killed a cow? I wouldn't trust this man to cook me a frozen burger, never mind provide an entire meal for me. What do these men do? What do they contribute? It's absolutely nothing.
Are you, apart from the things you're doing with charity and that, which is really good, by the way, what are you actually contributing to society with the work that you do?
The tax bill?
No, forget about the tax bill.
But that is what makes society
run. Because some people are doing things like...
Why does my job have to contribute to society?
Let me finish.
My job is contributing to making sure that me and my kids are okay.
I mean, can you believe this? Other than literally every amazing thing she's contributing, what are you doing? What are you even doing? Is he joking? And again, even if you want to take everything else out of the equation, the charity work, the low-income housing, the tax, take all that out of the equation. Look at it content creator to content creator, right? He barely manages to scrape 15,000 views on an average video, and that's only because he's exploiting women's bodies. The comments don't seem to really enjoy his content that much. People don't really enjoy People don't really seem to enjoy watching that much, except other angry men. It's got a very low viewership. You know, people aren't really invested in the podcast. Whereas her, she has hundreds of thousands of people following her and willing to pay for her content so much that she's making millions from it. You're not making any money from your podcast. I mean, you said you were going to start a Patreon, but it's not there anymore, if you ever made it at all. So you're not making any money. She's making millions. You don't have a dedicated fan base. She has hundreds of thousands. People regularly watch her content and she puts out a lot of it and it's high quality. You don't have that. Like, come on. And these comments on the video, I just want to read a couple of them for you. Imagine begging for money, then proceeding to bully the millionaire. Sitting behind a microphone while your buddies create a podcast you're not even getting paid for and asking what she contributes is wild. Exactly.
Bin men, doctors.
Right, I pay my council
Hold on,
tax.
wait. Bin men, doctors, nurses, Tesco workers are all contributing more than you are with your job.
I'm paying their
because
wages.
You're not doing anything.
I'm
you're just
paying
getting your
their
minge out,
wages.
and
I'm
men
paying
are
What are you
bashing to
doing?
what you're doing.
And what are you doing? I do a podcast. I'm contributing to society. Fuck you.
You don't know what we do.
I'm paying tax. I'm
We
paying
all pay
tax.
tax.
I pay enough tax to pay 30 people, 30 nurses' wages a year.
Yeah, I doubt you're paying tax if your podcast isn't even monetized, mate. Come on. Another comment here for you. Just check Company's House, noticed you've not filed and have been given your first strike before dissolution. How do you contribute to society? Can't even pay taxes. And then just to change sides completely because he's losing, he's like, oh, well, you know, if you are paying tax, why are you paying tax? He says it's a waste that she's paying so much in tax, which is just madness. No, it's not.
No, but don't you think it's okay? Let's move on from that. Don't you think it's a bit of a waste? You're giving the UK government so much money, like they're just
Do
throwing
you
it
think
all away.
you think I want to give the UK
Why don't
government?
you leave?
Why don't I leave? What?
You got the money. Why don't you leave the
Because
UK?
I've got children.
Yeah, take them.
I
They don't want to be here.
They do want to be here. I've already asked this. We
It's
already
because they
went
don't know
for.
where else they want to.
They've travelled a lot.
Like, where's the consistency? It makes no sense. What do you want from her? Do you want her to pay tax or not? And now he's trying to tell her how to raise her kids, trying to say like what her kids want when he's never even met them. Again, the nerve of this man.
It was a 6-week holidays and we got a motorhome and we drove from Cornwall, or from Chesterfield to Cornwall, back up to the Lake District in 6 weeks. And I asked them...
Not like the
UK,
Maldives
mate.
or...
Wait, they've seen Cornwall in the Lake
Let me finish. Let me finish.
We know they want to be in the UK now.
There've obviously been other places, but the plan was if they liked the
Where
motorhome...
No, but like other countries.
Imagine trying to mansplain kids to their own mother. God's sake. I often joke, especially with like Alizé and Eva, that like I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre man. But this man isn't even mediocre. Sean, well, actually all of them, but mostly Sean. Like, they're not even mediocre. They're just absolute scum. And they've still got more confidence than me. I think I just need to start saying screw it and just like giving things a go. Because like, can't be worse than anything these three are doing, can it? Rebecca goes on to describe all the amazing things she's done for her kids, and they just spend the entire time talking over her and laughing. And this is when she's had enough. And I think we just need to take a moment to applaud this moment because it's fantastic.
They liked the motorhome.
No, but like other countries.
You know what? I'm going to get off now. You lot are the most disrespectful people I've ever met.
What? We was only joking.
No, trust me. You lot are getting fucking rich and shit now.
Are you being serious?
Yeah, I'm being dead serious.
Hey, goodbye. What the fuck?
That is mad.
What?
So the kids want to be in the UK because they're going to go to Chester, to Sheffield, to Cornwall.
Guys, do you think we did anything wrong there? Like, were we...
She was just delusional, mate.
Yes, I think you did most things wrong, and no, she was not delusional. The only delusional people here are these three silly little boys. I think we just need to encourage more women to just walk away from men like this. And, I mean, yeah, call them out if you want, but, like, don't waste your time, like, talking to them in person. Don't go on their podcast. None of that. Silly. I can't believe they put this online with how pathetic it makes them look.
Were we rude?
No.
I don't think we was rude. She was just delusional.
Yeah, no, that is mad. If you keep it rolling though, her boyfriend might come in after.
Let him, mate. That'd be a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
I don't personally think that we was rude. I think we were just challenging her on her points. She's got very strong points, but she's delusional. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if her thinks she contributes to society for doing corn. That she doesn't.
I mean, we did push back a lot with like what we said, but I mean, isn't that like part of a podcast?
Yeah.
Like you come on here to share your opinions. I don't know why she got so angry about it all.
Yeah.
God knows.
Very good argument.
I don't think she's used to having people challenge her in her opinions. It's obvious. She's surrounded by yes men.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, she thinks she contributes to society from OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So Do we end the episode there?
Like, literally everything they say about her is pure projection. It's madness. And I mean, look what happens when she leaves. They have absolutely nothing interesting to say. No charisma, no presence on camera. They don't even know what to say to each other when they're not insulting a woman or trying to humiliate her or exploit her. It's pathetic. If they were really good podcast hosts, they could have been like, oh, well, you know what? Let's continue the podcast without her. Let's have a chat about these things. Let's do... No, they had nothing to say because they're not interesting people. They're not intelligent people. Like... They're just misogynists, and when they're not spewing misogyny, they have nothing to say. Thankfully, they got massively ratioed on this video, and the comments are destroying them, so there is some good in the world. However, sadly, they're back to posting absolute nonsense like this. Gem Lucy on Rebecca Goodwin drama and mental damages from... Oh, they mean porn. Okay, got you. Sorry. Like, Gem, I don't know who you are, but please... don't be a pick-me and pander to these misogynistic bullies. I'm sure you're better than that. Most women are better. All women should be better than that. I vote that we spread the word around and make sure all women boycott this podcast from now on and know that these men are absolute dangerous scum and they shouldn't be anywhere near them. If you know someone who is thinking about going on this podcast, tell them not to. Save them. Like, don't let them do this to themselves. If you know someone who's been on this podcast, maybe have a chat with them about it and be like, hey, like, maybe that was a bad idea. Maybe you could tell your audience or friends or co-workers not to do that either. Just an idea. Right. But yeah, that's kind of all I want to say on this matter. It's quite cathartic, actually. It's just like have a bit of a rant and just have fun. I feel like sometimes in my videos, we talk about like really sensitive topics, and I feel like I have to be like quite thoughtful about how I do it and quite nuanced. This time, it's not a nuanced topic. They're just horrible people, and it was quite nice to just let it out and not hold back and just, you know, shame the misogynists for being misogynists. There you go. So, there you go. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. If you'd like to go follow me over on Instagram, you can do. I post a lot of photos of Kyra over there. I sometimes post stories about books that I'm reading. I've started posting a few little short videos over there about like book recommendations and other stuff, so if people want to see that, you can do. I do a lot of live music photography in my spare time, so those photos go on there. Some nature photography and fun bits, even though that's not really what I specialise in. And you can just keep up to date with my life. It's not really like a work account, it's more of a personal account, but it's quite fun. If you want to give me a follow, you can do. If you're new here, it'd be great if you want to subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you a lot. Please stay respectful down in the comments, and yeah, be kind to each other. Thanks a lot. I'll see you again soon.